Hello friends, welcome back. Myself Pushpender Singh, and we are going to start with our daily current affairs. So we have 20th of July 2021. As you know that these lectures are useful for those who are preparing for the civil services examination which is conducted by the UPSC, right? And we are specifically referring the two national newspapers, the Hindu and Indian Express, for these lectures. So let's begin with the lecture. So first news is all about the OPEC, that is Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, right? And allies agree to boost the oil output. So here the OPEC Plus, or the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, and its allies, which are led by Russia, right? So OPEC Plus is led by the Russia, have agreed to gradually withdraw the COVID-19 related production cuts that was implemented, right, way back in 2020 by September 2022, right? And this would ultimately lead to, right, the crude oil prices would be falling, right, to ultimately the 72 dollars per barrel on the 19th July 2021. So right, so OPEC Plus have decided to increase the overall production as well as to gradually withdraw, right, those cuts that was initiated in that manner, right? And it will be done, right, till the group's 10 million barrels per day production cut that was announced in April 2020 is completely phased out over the period of the time, right? So this decision would also ends the standoff between the United Arab Emirates as well as the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, or OPEC Plus countries, right? Specifically the standoff on trying to extend, right, or the supply agreement to increase the production. So here the OPEC Plus group of the countries, basically in April 2020, have entered into our 2-year agreement, right? That 2-year agreement which entails the steep cut in the crude oil production to deal with the sharp fall in the price of the crude oil. At that point of the time, there was very sharp fall in the prices of the crude oil, right, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, right? Specifically in April 2020, right, the price for the Brent crude oil, right, it basically hit the 18 years low. It was under $20 per barrel. So you can understand that that was to that much low of around $20 per barrel in April 2020, right? As the economic activities around the world was completely crashed because of the COVID-19 pandemic, right? And the countries were basically preparing to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic, right? So here the crude oil prices has, however, since then recovered to well above the pre-COVID-19 levels, right? Ultimately, that lead to India and other developing countries calling for the withdrawal of those cuts that was basically initiated, right? Because of the Brent crude oil prices have sufficiently gone up, right? So current price of the Brent crude oil, that is about 39% higher than the price, right, of the Brent crude oil at the beginning of this year 2021. Okay, so that thus there is always a sharp increase in the crude oil prices, which has led to the contribution of the increase in the prices of the petrol and the diesel. Now in India also we are facing the same heat, right? The petrol is touching almost 110 rupees per liter, right? And various portions of the country. So current Brent crude oil price is almost 39% higher. Okay, and now what was the standoff between the United Arab Emirates as well as the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, or OPEC Plus countries? So initial proposal that was made by the OPEC Plus countries, right, that is related to gradual cut down, right, or gradual increase in the production, right, specifically with respect to that agreement that is going to expire in April 2021. Okay, here, the United Arab Emirates did not agree to the proposal in the initial period of the time, right? And stating that these reference production level that was used to calculate the supplies quotas, specifically for OPEC plus countries, did not present the actual supply capacity of UAE. So, in that manner, the increase in supply would not tie to the proposed extension without the revision of the reference production level as claimed by the United Arab Emirates. And the final decision which was taken by the OPEC plus right, on the withdrawal of the production cuts, does not also include an extension of the production agreement, right, does also include the extension of the production agreement to September 2022 till all such production cut that was initiated by the April 2020 would be completely phased out. Okay, and how would it impact on India? You can understand that the announcement of increase in the production level that will give some relief to the India as well as other developing countries, because they was fearing, right, across the world, right, that because of the COVID-19 pandemic, right, the crude oil production further cuts down and that prices may shoot up. So the price of the Brent crude oil has risen already to $77 per barrel earlier in the July 2021, right. That is because of the potential deadlock in OPEC plus negotiations in the production level. But now, since the OPEC plus, which is led by the Russia, have announced to withdraw all such cuts that were announced at the point of the April 2020. So India has already seen 21.7 percentage increase in the price of the petrol as well as the diesel since the beginning of this year. So this will impact definitely positively India, specifically with respect to the cutting of the prices of the petrol and the diesels, right, at the retail level. Okay, the first human death of the monkey bee virus. So recently, the China has reported the first human infection case, which is related to the monkey bee virus. Right? It is amid the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic. This new virus that is called monkey bee virus is also started affecting, right, the Beijing, specifically the Beijing, the area on and around the Beijing. So here the Beijing-based a veterinarian doctor who was basically died because of this monkey bee virus. So the veterinarian was basically caught this monkey bee virus when he dissected the two dead monkeys in the month of March, and later the veterinarian basically died in the month of May. So what happens is this 53-year-old, this male veterinarian who worked for the institutions related to the non-human primates, right, and this 53-year-old, the veterinarian basically started showing the symptoms of the nausea as well as the vomiting in the month of April. And after that, his situation basically deteriorated over the period of the time, and ultimately he's come to the death in the month of May. Right. So now let us understand what is this monkey bee virus. So monkey bee virus was initially isolated in 1932. Right. It is basically an alpha herpes virus and zoonotic in the macaque of the genus Macaca, right? And this virus is only identified in the old world monkeys, that is the herpes virus that displays a severe pathogenicity in the humans specifically, and this infection can be transmitted via direct contact, right, and exchange of any sort of a bodily secretions of the monkey, right. So if you come with the saliva of the monkey or any sort of secretions of the monkey, right, you will get infected with this monkey bee virus, and the fatality rate specifically from the monkey bee virus is around 70% to 80%, that is on the higher side. And according to the Center of the Disease Control and the Prevention, this macaque monkeys, right, so these macaque monkeys commonly have this virus, and it is basically also found in their saliva, right, that we are talking about, in their contact. It is also found, right, in the poop, that is called the feces, right. It is also found in their urine, that is pee, as well as the spinal cord tissues, right. So it is basically found the virus, or this is basically a reservoir for this virus, and this virus may be found in the cells also, right, from the infected monkey. So in somehow, if that cells or the poop or urine or spinal cord tissues come in the contact with the humans, definitely the humans will get affected, and this virus can survive for hours on the surface also when the surface is moist, right, and the humans are having very high chances to get infected if the humans are bitten by the macaque or the monkeys, right, or they are scratched by the infected monkeys, right. So definitely, if the monkey is infected, right, the fluids or any sort of a the bodily secretions can easily can penetrate into the human's body. So here, through the broken skin, or through the eyes, through the nose, through the mouth, through the scratch, or through the cut, right? This saliva or this contaminated virus may enter into the human the body, and symptoms typically start within a month. So you have to wait for 1 month at least to get your symptoms to come and to expose to this monkey v virus. And that could appear also as little as 3 to 7 days, but definitely it will appear right in between 3 to 7 days to around 1 month, right? The onset of the symptoms, and symptoms are the nausea, vomiting, just like the other symptoms of just like a flu. Okay, next, just 7% of our DNA is unique. So this is basically a study, right, which have been recently been published in a journal called the Science Advances, right? So what makes our humans unique? That is what is the questions. So scientists have taken another step forward to solve a mystery, right, with a new tool, right? With respect to, right, that tool may allow for more precise comparisons between the DNA, right? So here the DNA of the modern humans, right, as well as our extinct humans was basically compared. So here the comparative analysis or comparison was basically done, right, of the DNA of the modern humans like us, as well as our extinct ancestors, or the humans, you can say that, right? And definitely the study has done a very detailed analysis related to our DNA, and it has been found that just 7% of our DNA is unique. So this research basically draw upon the DNA which is being extracted from the fossil remains of the extinct humans, that are basically the Neanderthals and your Denisovans. The Neanderthals were basically dating back, or the Denisovans was basically dating back to around, you can say, around 40,000 to around 50,000 years back, right? So these were our ancestors or our extinct humans that were survived way back, right, around 40 to 50,000 years back, right? So this DNA have been extracted and compared with the 279 modern human people around the world. The scientists have already know the modern people share some DNA with the Neanderthals, but the different people share the different parts of the genome. That is also quite known to the scientists. And one goal of this new research is basically to identify the genes that are exclusive to the modern humans, specifically to that respect. And it is very difficult statistical problem, right? And the researchers basically developed a valuable tool to take into account some sort of a missing data in the ancient genomes by comparing this DNA, right? And the researchers just also found that the very smaller fraction of our genome, just around 1.5%, is unique, right? To our species and shared among all people that are alive today, right? Those silvers of the DNA may also hold the most significant clues as to what truly distinguishes the modern human beings with our ancestors, or with the previous humans, the ancient humans, right, who have lived around 40 to 50,000 years back. Okay, next you have the Pegasus spyware. So here the Pegasus is basically spyware which have been recently been manufactured by the Israel NSO group, right? So it is a spyware. Spyware means who used to do just like a spy work, right? So it is a software which is also a spyware, right, which have been reportedly marketed by the Israel NSO group to the governments across the world, right, in order to spy over the devices. So this the Pegasus spyware was first discovered in 2016. It was first discovered, right? And the spyware have been catapulted into the limelight after an investigation that was done by the Guardian, right? That was basically targeted a list of the targets at that point of the time, that include hundreds of the journalists around the world, right, in their devices. So how this Pegasus spyware or the Pegasus software spyware basically works? So this is just in software that is being installed on the phones, right, of those journalists or those, the persons who is undergoing this that type of spies activities, right? This Pegasus software is getting installed without the knowledge of the user, right? And that installation will be sent through some sort of a link that once you download, this type of spyware is automatically installed in your device. And the guardian who have conducted the inquiry related to the targets, around 180 journalists who were targeted by this Pegasus spyware, they have found that, the forensic examination of the phone was done, right, with respect to that, and affected devices will end up giving total control, right, to the person which is spying on the user, right? For example, the virtuality of all data which is accessible in terms of the text, to the emails, to the WhatsApp chat, right? And the ability to turn on the device microphone and the listening. So this type of the Pegasus software or the spyware can automatically turn your microphone, started listening, can check your WhatsApp chats, can check your text, emails, or whatever it may be. So it has secretly, spying over your phone. In 2019, the major messaging app WhatsApp also revealed that this Israeli technology called Pegasus software or the spyware have been infected almost 1400 phones, right? Worldwide, with an application which is being installed by the users anonymously, so without their notice. And they were basically the significant targets related to that type of the spyware all around the world. Okay, next, internet by a balloon. So here the most important aspect is that the Florida, Republican Governor Ross DeSantis basically have called the President Joe Biden to provide, the internet services to the Cuban people, specifically, right, when the government of Cuba have cut down or the block the access of the internet to the peoples of Cuba. So the Florida governor basically asked the president of the USA to provide and to give the green light to plan and to transmit the internet to the citizens of Cuba, because the government of the Cuba have blocked the access to the internet, right, with respect to that. So here the project Loon, which will basically provide, such type of internet connectivity to the people of Cuba. So here the project Loon, which was initiated by the Alphabet, which is a parent company of Google, okay, that work to provide the internet balloon services, which are also called the Loon, right? But that services was basically shut down, saying that it was not commercially viable, right? And the prior to the shutdown, these Loons balloons were basically used to provide the services, specifically in the far-flung areas like mountainous areas all around the world. So what is that Loon service, or what is that Loon? See, the Loon is basically, many of us think that internet as a global community, but the two-third of the world people basically does not yet have the internet access. So this project Loon, is a network of the balloons that are traveling on the edge of the space, all right, and that are designed to connect the people in the rural as well as in the remote areas, that help to fill, some sort of the coverage gaps, and the people basically back online after such type of, with the help of those balloons. So they are the technology which have been used in terms of these balloons. So project Loon balloons basically float in the stratosphere, which is the second layer after troposphere, okay, twice as high as the airplanes, okay. And in the stratosphere, there are many layers of the winds. Each layer of the wind basically varies in the directions, right, and the speed. So these Loon balloons will basically, go there where they would be needed by raising and descending into those layers that will be adjusted, from the earth based on some sort of a technology, right? And the project Loon was basically beginning in June 2013, right, with with the experimental pilot work that was done in the New Zealand. So project Loon was basically work, all around the world, specifically by putting the balloons around 20 kilometers above the earth in the stratosphere. So their winds in the stratosphere are basically stratified, or they are different, the speed of the wind or the direction of the wind specifically in the stratosphere in the stratified layer, and each layer of this wind varies in the speed and the direction. So Project Loon basically uses the software algorithm to determine where the balloons need to go, right, and then move each one into that layer of the wind, right, in the right direction. And by moving with that wing, the balloon can also be arranged in the form of the one layer, communication network, and that is how they will provide all sort of a connectivity to the world, specifically with respect to the balloon. So here the balloon are basically sent to the 20 kilometers into the stratosphere, right, that is the second layer, and the software basically moves them up and down, that is basically stratified layers of the stratosphere, right, specifically to that position. And each balloon beams the internet connections down to the antennas on the ground, and antenna will basically catch those connections, and that will relay those signals to the users specifically. And that is how the Project Loon will basically worked out this plan. Okay, next, agar. So here the government of Tripura have initiated the steps to promote the commercial cultivation of agar. What is that agar? See, agar is basically a jelly-like substances, right, which is being obtained from the red algae. So Tripura has come out with the Tripura agar wood policy. Agar is basically, a substance or the jelly-like substance which have been commercially used, right, in the Tripura. So here the agar is basically promoted by the government of Tripura by agar wood policy 2021, and that is basically proposed to double the agar wood plantation by 2025. And the state has already potential of agar trade of around 2000 crore rupees. So agar is basically a jelly like substances which is obtained from algae or red algae. These algae, they are known as agrophytes, right, belonging to the rhodophyta or the red algae phylum, right. So this agar basically forms the supporting structure, or you can say that in the cell wall of the certain species of the algae, right, and it is basically released on the boiling process. So once you catch this red algae and you started boiling them, right, this type of the agar, which is a jelly like substances, which basically comes out in the cells wall or from the cells walls of the species called the red algae. And the agar have been used as as ingredients in the desert throughout the Asia, right. So it's a solid substance which is basically used to contain the culture media for the microbiological work also, right. So the agar is basically used as ingredients in the deserts, and agar was also used as a laxative, as a appetite suppressant, right, as well as it is also a vegetarian substitute for galectin, right, as well as it is also used as a thickener, right, for the soups, as well as it is also used, the food preservatives, the ice cream preservatives, as well as other desert preservatives. So it is also act as a clarifying agents in the brewing process, right, as well as it is also used in the process called sizing papers as well as the fabrics. So the agar is also used in the perfumeries, in the perfume industries, as well as other industries and applications. So agar has tremendous industrial applications, and that is why the government of Tripura is basically exporting or promoting this agar in the state of Tripura. Okay, next, the new gecko species. So recently the Odisha Forest Department have basically launched the new conservation plan basically to conserve the new gecko species which have been discovered in the Ganjam district, right, of the Odisha. So here the newly discovered tiny gecko species, which is being belong to the genus the Hemiphylodelectus, right, and this species was first spotted, right, within the premises of a temple at the Hamma in the Ganjam district of Odisha in 2014. And later than the team of the scientists basically traced its habitat to the Jagdeshwar secret grove area, right, in the similar district, in the similar Ganjam district. And this area is the only habitat for this rare species, right, as the species was never found in the concrete walls or below the rock boulders, right, unlike the other members of this genus of this the Hemiphyllodactylus, right. So they are basically found specifically in these secret groups. And such type of new gecko species basically fed upon the ants, termites, the small roaches, the spiders, and the beetles. And these new species is basically the 17th or the 7th Indian species of the genus, and it is the second from the northeastern Ghats, and it is also the 41st species, right, globally with respect to those species. Okay. So this is the new gecko species. Next, build back better world. So here the G7 leaders finally came around with a proposal to build back better world, right? Specifically, this proposal is to counter the China's Belt and Road Initiative. So under this build back better world, the G7 leaders is basically going to promote the infrastructural development, specifically in the developing and the lower income countries, right? So main purpose of the G7 leaders is to fill that vacuum that has been created, and there the China is reaping the benefits of basically that vacuum by pushing for this Belt and Road Initiative, right? So to counter the China's move as well as to address the infrastructural investment deficit in the developing and the lower income countries, build back better word was basically a proposed window of the development for those developing and lower income countries, right? So what is build back better word? It is basically a counter strategy that has been necessary to bring down the Chinese leverage. Okay, this counter proposal of the build back better word is certainly, a welcome step to contain the adverse implications of the Chinese mega plan, right? So here definitely the build back better word lacks the coherent thoughts and proper planning at the stage, but that is being needed specifically to contain the China. Regarding Belt Road Initiative project, the Belt Road Initiative projects basically, aims at the cross-border transportation of the goods, access to the energy, creating of, the infrastructural facilities, creating the demand to access the capacity in the Chinese industry specifically. So overall focus is on the developing of the transportation, logistics, right, the communications, and which will reduce the trade and transaction cost for the China's trade, and to give more market access to the Chinese market. So ultimately, to in that process to gain more forex reserve and to ensure the stable supply of energy and other resources to the China. So it's very, very important, and many countries including India would see the adverse trade impact, right, on their products and competitiveness, as well as the market access and the resource extractions due to this Chinese Belt and Road Initiative. So this Belt and Road Initiative, projects across the geography. So it is basically, a pattern of investment reflect the motive of China centering international economic integration that basically led to the production networks, the hegemony of the China in Asia Pacific region, and eventually the hegemony of the China in the global economy. So definitely it has been harming the interest not only of India but also to the other developing as well as the developed country because of this China's Belt and Road Initiative. All right. Next, recently a study was basically conducted. This study was basically published in the basically, in the journal called the Nature Communications. That study was basically related to the intergenerational benefit of the midday meal scheme that has been, initiated by the government of India. So let us understand what the study says, or what the findings of this report says that. So it says that by 2016, the prevalence of the stunting specifically was significantly lower in those areas where the scheme was implemented in 2005. So definitely wherever the scheme was implemented, the proportion of the stunting was lower. Okay, the report further says that the scheme was basically associated to around 13 to 32% improvement specifically in the height to age, the scores specifically in India between the year 2006 and 2016. So that the scheme was started implementing from 2005 onward. So data was taken from 2006 to 2016, right? And this scheme and this report further says that the girls who have access to, the free lunches specifically at the school level, at the government schools, they have, higher height to age ratio specifically, right, those then compared to those who does not have the free lunches at the government school level. The study, further noted that the interventions is needed to improve the maternal height, as well as the education must be implemented years before those girls and the young women become mothers, right? And this linkage between the midday meal schemes as well as the lower stunting in the next generation was basically very stronger in the lower socio-economic strata, and that are likely work through the women's education, fertility, and the use of the health services, specifically through the midday meal scheme. So this midday meal scheme that is basically implemented by the government of India, it has been launched as a national program of nutrient support to the primary education, as it is also known as the midday meal scheme in 1995. Later in 2002, the Supreme Court directed, right, the government to provide the cooked midday meal, in all government as well as the government aided primary schools. And later, this scheme was basically revised in 2004 and in 2006, right? And ultimately, this scheme became the world largest school meal program, and that reaches to estimate, to around 11 crore children, 11 crore children across 12 lakh schools, basically, following this midday meal school or midday meal scheme. So what is the objective, or what was the objective of this midday meal? The simple objective is to improve the nutritional status of the children in the class 1st to class 8th, in the government schools, in the local body schools, in the government aided schools, as well as the educational guarantee scheme. So that nutritional, as well as to encourage the poor children belonging to the disadvantaged sections to attain the schools regularly, because now the hot cooked meals basically served during the during the school hours. So it is very important to enhance the enrollment of the children in the school, right, and to develop the tendency to stay in the schools, specifically from this lower socio-economic backward children. So it's a very important step that was taken by the government of India to increase the enrollment ratio, specifically from the socio-economic or lower background, children that are basically are more concerned. They do not attend about the schools, specifically with respect to the primary schools. Okay, next, the ethanol blending. So here the Union Minister for the Petroleum and the Natural Gas has informed the Lok Sabha about the ethanol blending. So here the policy was notified by the government of India, that is the national policy on the biofuels in 2018, that provided the target of around the blending of around 20% of the ethanol in the petrol by 2030, right? And that ethanol blending was improved from just 1.53 percentage that was during 2013-14. It has increased to 7.93 percentage in the year of 2020-21. So definitely, but this has further improved to 2020. Sorry, this has further need to improve to 20% of the ethanol blending in the petrol, right? And the Ministry of Petroleum and the Natural Gas have already published this notification on the June 2, 2021, right? And which have already stated, as well as the directed, the oil marketing companies, that they shall sell the ethanol blended petrol, right? And that should gradually increase to 20% of the blending of the ethanol as per the BIS specifications to the whole of India, right, as well as the Union Territory. And that scheme basically came into effect from 1st April 2023, right? And already E100 pilot project have already been launched in the Pune city by the public oil marketing companies on the June 5, 2021, right? Now, one thing that will be coming to your mind, what is the benefit of blending of this ethanol? So first of all, as you know that because of the greenhouse gas emissions in the burning of these fossil fuels, right, the main aim is to reduce the carbon footprint, right? So many people, the leaders around the world, basically are looking for the lower carbon footprint, that basically reduce the carbon emissions specifically from the fuel. So ethanol, which is also known as ethyl alcohol, right, or C2H5OH, which is a kind of alcohol which is basically derived from from different commodities, like you have the corn, sugar cane, grain, right, indirectly also from the paper base. So it is the main type of alcohol in the most alcoholic beverages that we basically use, right? So you can say that this blending of this alcohol specifically in the petrol would definitely help in getting off the lower emissions specifically in the world. So here there were many such, the benefits of blending of this alcohol or the ethanol specifically in this fuel. So what are the benefit? Let us understand the benefit. So first of all, the ethanol fuel is a cost effective compared to other biofuels. So it will be a cost effective, it will be least expensive energy source, right? And since every country has the capability to produce this, right? Every country can produce the corn, sugar cane, or the grain. From there the ethanol or the meat, or your basically ethanol can be produced, right? And it is also the ecologically effective, right? You can say that it is also having the advantage of the ethanol over other fuel resources, and which does not cause the pollution to the environment. So that is in the form of the ecologically effective, and it will also help in the reduction of the global warming. So global warming is basically caused by the emissions of these greenhouse gases from the use of the fossil fuels, right? So this effect of the global warming is basically catastrophic, and by using this fuel is basically reduce the global warming also, and it is easily accessible, right? So here the ethanol is basically a biofuel that is easily accessible to everyone, right? That can be derived from the plants like the sugar cane, grains, and crops. And tropical climates basically support the growth of the sugar cane, the grain and the corn that can grow in almost all countries. And most important thing is that it will basically cut down the dependence on the fossil fuels, that the India is also almost 80% dependent on the crude oil, right? And it also create the opportunities for the employment in the country, and definitely it will also open the various opportunities to the agricultural sector. And the ethanol fuel is also a source of hydrogen, which is also another form of energy. So here you can say that from the sugarcane, the fermentation process, then through the purification process, the ethanol is extracted. Then it has been blended in the petrol that has been fed into the truck as a transportation fuel, and there it is basically also can be fed to the petrol stations specifically for the purpose of supplying to those trucks or other the transportation the vehicles, right? Next, the NEA Scout. So NASA, National Aeronautics Space Administration, have announced the new spacecraft that has been recently been named as the NEA Scout, right? And that new spacecraft have already completed all required tests, right? And it has been safely tucked inside the Space Launch System rocket, right? So this NEA Scout is basically the Near Earth Asteroid Scout. That is the full form of NEA Scout. It is a small aircraft that is the size of around a shoebox. It is the main mission that is to fly by and to collect the data from the near Earth asteroids that scientists are basically looking for, right? And it is America's first interplanetary mission that will basically use a special solar cell propulsion system that is basically specifically designed for the Scout, and it will be also used in Artemis 1 mission, right, which have been initiated by the NASA. So NEA Scout is one such payload that will be sent to the space, right, on the Artemis 1, which is expected to the launch in the month of November 2021. And here the Artemis 1 will be uncrewed test flight, right, on the Orion spacecraft with the help of the SLS rocket, right? And in that, the Artemis program, the NASA is basically aiming at to land the first woman on the surface of the moon in the year of 2024, right, as well as to establish the sustainable solar exploration program by 2030. So here, with the help of the NEA Scout and Artemis 1 program, right, with the help of SLS rocket, the NASA is basically having the plan to explore the lunar specifically by the year of 2030. Okay. Next, the Indian Institute of Heritage. So here the government has decided to set up the new institute that is known as the Indian Institute of Heritage at Noida in the Gautam Buddha Nagar in the UP. Okay, the institute is being set up as a deemed to the university by integrating almost 5 already existing institutes. So first institute is Institute of Archaeology, that is also known as the Pandit Deendayal Upadhyay Institute of Archaeology. Second is the School of Archival Studies under the National Archives of India, New Delhi. The third is the National Research Laboratory for the Conservation of Cultural Property, that is located in Lucknow. The National Museum Institute of History of Art, Conservation and Museology, right, and the academic wing of Indira Gandhi National Center for the Arts, that is located in New Delhi. So there, these 5 institutes will be integrated, right, under the Indian Institute of Heritage, which will be the deemed to the university. What is the benefit? It will become the world class university, where the special focus will be provided to the conservation and to the research of the India's rich tangible heritage, right? And that will offer research, development and dissemination of the knowledge which is associated with the heritage of India. All right, so that's all for today. Thank you very much. We'll meet again tomorrow for our next current affairs. Thank you very much.